Hi, everybody. I'm here with Cale Moodie of Neptune Digital Assets. And I'm DJ Dunkerley, New Currency Frontier, as you know, because you clicked to hear from my website or my mail out. And we're going to do an interview here with Cale on Neptune Digital Assets, who's had a very exciting year. Of course, we all have. He's going to talk a little bit about himself and his company. And just before we begin, I got to go through the usual disclaimers. Of course, everything we talk about is not investment advice. It's for informational purposes only. And Cale is the president and CEO of Neptune Digital Assets, which is listed on the TSX Venture Exchange and also on the OTC Pink Sheets, symbol NPPF.
NPPTF.
What's that?
NPPTF on the OTC.
On the OTC.
OTCQB.
Thank you. And I do have to disclose that I own stock in Neptune Digital Assets and may consider buying more in the future. So having started all that, enough about me. Just going to talk, Cale, the first question I always ask everybody when I do an interview is just, tell me a little bit about yourself and tell me how you got into crypto. And feel free to spend a bit of time on that.
Yeah, so I am a CPA by trade. So ex-KPMG Industrial Markets Group, way back, I guess in the late 2000s. And it was a bit of a gold boom back then. So I left public practice, went into industry, and was working for gold and metals companies. So I really got a sense for gold, scarce resources, scarce assets, and I sort of became a bit of a gold bug. And that, a few years later, I read the white paper, Digital Gold, which was about Bitcoin. I didn't really understand it very well, but I understood the concept of scarcity. So that was probably 2012, 13. I did start buying some Bitcoin back then, experimenting with that in the very early days. Should have bought a lot more in hindsight, but you never know.
Everybody feels that way.
Yeah, everybody feels that way.
Too, right? So,
yeah, exactly. And so in 2000, actually fast forward to 2013, 14, I tried to put together a public company with some friends called Bet Noir. And it was basically a Bitcoin company of sorts that dealt with processing transactions. And it was very early stage and nobody really understood it. Our lawyers did try to put together a prospectus, but it sort of died on the vine when we got the big pullback from 1,000 BTC back to like 200 or whatever it went to 180. And we all thought Bitcoin might be dead. That died on the vine. Fast forward a few more years, 2017, myself and my business partner at the time, we tried to put together the first Canadian Bitcoin ETF, and it was called Neptune Bitcoin Trust. We took it all the way to the OTC Sandbox, and we were shot down by the Ontario Securities Commission because it was basically a novel asset class at that time, And in hindsight, we now have a bunch of Canadian Bitcoin ETFs and trusts, and so we were basically about 2 years too early, unfortunately there. But fortunately, what we did is we said, okay, well, we can't do a trust. Let's put together a public company, do similar sort of thing. Basically, we put together a company called Neptune Dash at the time, and we had an operating business in which we ran Dash masternodes, and that generated some income. It was quite interesting. It was, I think, Dash at the time, Dash token was, I don't know, number 4 or 5 in terms of market cap of all the cryptocurrencies out there. So it made sense to actually just raise capital, which we did. We raised 20 million bucks. We bought Dash. We built masternodes. The masternodes generated some income, and there we go. We had a cryptocurrency company, and we did start buying a little bit of Bitcoin, but it was mostly just a Dash company, and we thought Dash was going to do really well. It didn't. It sort of stagnated. We did list this company in early 2018. So if you can imagine the height of Bitcoin at that time, that was the first big rally where we hit 20K. That was in Christmas or December 2017. So by the time we went public, the market was starting to unwind. So we basically went public at the top of the market. We took that 20 million bucks and we jammed it into Dash, and Dash collapsed, and we were into a bear market by summer 2018. The bear market was interesting. It allowed us to basically diversify our business. We started moving into Bitcoin, diversifying some of our assets over 2019. We bought some Atom and started. We actually built a Cosmos Atom validator. So we started to diversify our assets, and we said, hey, let's generate as much Bitcoin as we can. Let's have these little different mining engines. We can get into what we actually do at Neptune here in a little more detail, but it diversified and it grew and it became Neptune Digital Assets. And so now, I'm a founder of the company. This is my baby, and it's growing quite well now. Again, we see Bitcoin prices coming back, and things are looking good again.
Great. I want to really dig into the nitty gritty of your company.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be fun, especially as a shareholder. Looking like it's undervalued right now compared to the assets, which is great. But first of all, I just want to talk a little bit more about the industry in general and really how it's kind of impacted. Like, I guess I just want your views on the industry from a historical point of view, because you've been in this industry for 10 years. So you went through the crash of 2017, 2018, like I did. Now you just the recent crash, like I did. Like, what are the similarities and what are the differences, I think, between the two corrections? And to layer on another question, why does this keep happening? Like, what's your opinion on that? So.
Well, I think from a technical perspective, I mean, we're gonna have bear market. We're gonna have bear markets. We're gonna have bull markets. That, like any industry, crypto is a little bit different in that there's some fundamental aspects to it. The hurdles and the roadblocks seem to be different every time, right?
Right.
This bear market obviously was a result of a lot of recklessness and basically mismanagement, and I would say centralization of assets, where the whole concept is for these things to be decentralized. So you take this sort of nascent business run by sort of cowboys, and they centralize everything, and they do a poor job of doing that, and everything collapses. And so that's what's really pushed us into this devastating. 2022 was a devastating year. I like to say that winning right now is just not going bankrupt and staying alive. So that's been the story for this bear market, and it looks like we're sort of climbing out of that, which is nice to see. The last bear market, I've seen like really 3 bear markets. And the first one, I didn't have enough expertise to really know what that was. I think that was just, you get a flurry of investment and then people take profits, and then you sort of get the technical curves that sort of work their way through the system. The second bear market of 2018-19, that's really hard to say. I mean, you didn't have the same sort of bankruptcies and calamities that you had this most recent one that we're in right now. So it was a very different time, and I would say it was just basically fervor, and it was panic investing, and it was greed, and then everything sort of got wiped out. I mean, we had Mount Gox, obviously, back in the day. That was a big one, and that was like going to be the death of Bitcoin. And of course, as we know now, it's never the death of Bitcoin. It's just a reset. So, I feel like a lot of this stuff is sort of just technical waves, and but this recent one has been extra bad. And I think on top of the technical aspects of the bear runs, the bear markets and bull runs, you also have these bad actors that can exacerbate these pullbacks. And I think that's what's happened on this recent one.
Okay. And I guess the follow-up to that question is, do you think this cycle will ever stop? Or like, do you think we'll see these super bubbles, and then we'll see these massive, like, will Bitcoin and all the crypto continue? Because that's really, I mean, if that's really the case, then it's just for guys like us, it's awesome. Oh, okay. Bitcoin's hit a new all-time high. It's 5 times above its previous all-time high. I sell. Then I wait
Yeah,
for everybody to dump it, and then I buy. And to be honest, it's kind of like I can live with that as a long.
it's easy. I mean, yeah, once you, and I totally agree with you, once you've been through a few of these cycles, it's really easy. You have to just bet against the emotions of everybody else.
Yeah,
It's sort of your traditional, like, when it's blood in the streets and you really don't want to buy because you think it's going to zero and your brain is trying to convince you it's going to zero. That's when you should be buying this stuff because the rallies are so crazy every time. And so to your question, is it always going to be like this? I don't think so. I think it's going to become more mainstream, and those peaks and valleys are going to get reduced, and we're still going to have traditional bull cycles and bear markets, just like in gold and other, and Nasdaq cycles and S&P, whatever. And I think it's going to be more normalized. But that could be 10 or 20 years away still. I mean, it's hard to say. And I think regulation and this stuff becoming more mainstream internationally and worldwide, and it's probably going to normalize the peaks and valleys. But I think for the next couple of bull runs and bear cycles, we're still going to have these crazy rallies, and I think there's a lot of money to be made buying the bottoms and then selling and taking profits at the top, which is of course more difficult than it sounds.
yeah. I mean, and just a side tangent. Again, I'm a gold bug too. I mean, we all are on the West
Yeah.
Coast. I've had my share of gold stocks and buying gold. And part of do you think Bitcoin really is substituting? Like, not is Bitcoin one day going to be a substitute for gold, but is Bitcoin right now acting as a substitute for gold?
I don't think so. I don't.
Gold would be under $2,000.
Yeah.
Instead, pumping all this money in, I would have been like, I mean, what's happening with gold? I guess if I could just ask you that.
Yeah. And I mean, is it a rigged market? It seems easier it seems like it would be way easier to rig Bitcoin because you have a number of parties who own a lot of Bitcoin, rather than rig the gold market. But yeah, I'm an advocate of gold. I think it should be part of your portfolio. It's part of my portfolio. I don't think it's an and. It's an or. Like, you have to have Bitcoin or gold. I think you have a bit of both. Um, the next generation, I think they have a hard time wrapping their head around gold because most people want everything to be instant, right? And the blockchain is instant. It's easy. It's instant. It's just like, the next generation doesn't care about cars. They just want to get from A to B quickly and easily. So I think it's sort of like that. I would say, yeah, I would say it's going to be a part of everybody's portfolio. You want to have a bit of gold, you want to have a bit of Bitcoin, and I think both are going to do well in an environment where there's QE, and that's what we're seeing again now. And yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, I would have expected gold to be 2,500, 3,000 by now, but we just haven't seen that, and that's
Yeah.
so it's a little bit odd to me, and it is bizarre. But these bear cycles in gold can last 10 to 15 years, um, fundamentals aside. So you just need to see people coming back into the space for gold. But I think Bitcoin's an easier bet. Plus it's new, plus it's cool technology. And it's for sure not going to be diluted past 21 million. We know that. So conceptually, gold, yes, you can find more gold. We know that gold will get more difficult to mine, but there is more gold out there, and we just don't know how much.
Okay. Another question I want to ask you, and it's kind of not a question that I want to go into the usual scripts that we see on Twitter, and it's about regulation in general. Not just like the usual hot story out of the U.S., but regulation about Bitcoin in general all over the world. And just to detail that, like in the last correction, Asia and China in particular were just trying to do everything they can to ban Bitcoin. And now they're starting to open up about Bitcoin again. Hong Kong is putting in new rules to trade Bitcoin, which I think is tremendously underreported here. I just flag it to show that it's kind of weird that in the last correction, China was hating Bitcoin, North America was still pretty cool about it. Now you're kind of seeing a reverse where, China through Hong Kong is now really warming up the Bitcoin again, which is quite remarkable and unreported here. But then North America and the US in particular are kind of really starting to clamp down, and Gary in particular, the SEC is doing on that. And then just, I want to have your thoughts on that, but I want to have your thoughts really from like a historical point of view, like over the last 10 years, kind of what have you seen in terms of regulation, what the regulators and governments have thought about Bitcoin and crypto in general, and how they've progressed over the last 10 years, or if they haven't progressed at all. So just,
Well, yeah, what's interesting is that, it was never taken seriously at the beginning. So it was a joke, and nobody paid much attention to it from government bodies. Even when in 2017, when it had first rally, it wasn't until Mount Gox that it was sort of like, wow, that was big. That was like, and it could get bigger. So I think that was the first big wake up call for government. But yeah, I mean, I don't pay attention to the sound bites anymore so much, because they just sort of bounce them back and forth. India's banning it, now India's accepting it, now they're banning it, now they're accepting it. Same with China, it's been back and forth endlessly. I think the bad actors in the space has created problems for the business, in that the governments now are being pushed back into a corner where they have to rush to regulation. So you have all these bad actors and bankruptcies, and now retail consumers are saying, hey, we've been ripped off. Why didn't you do anything about this? Or what can you do about it? Or this needs to be regulated. And so now the government is sort of a knee jerk, where government's just scrambling to regulate in an environment where they just haven't been paying that much attention or enough attention to it, and doing thoughtful regulation as the industry grew. And so I think that's part of the problem. Knee jerk is never good. You end up with rules that don't really make a ton of sense. So that's a concern for me, is the knee jerk stuff. But like in terms of countries like China and India, I mean, I think it's just nonsensical to even pay attention to them, because the Chinese are going to use Bitcoin either way, and all the mining rigs are coming out of China. I mean, they're so tied to it. I literally just think it's political posturing when you hear China's going to ban Bitcoin, or India's going to ban Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies. The governments at the end of the day just want a piece of the pie. So they want a piece of the pie, and they want to make sure that they don't get in trouble for people being ripped off. That's my sense of it.
But do you think, especially maybe in the US, like more regulation is actually helping? Like, I'll put a subversive question, like maybe more regulation, as poor as it is, that we think, because we're kind of the experts, but more regulation, more government scrutiny is actually not hindering the price of Bitcoin and Ethereum. Like,
no, it's not. No.
Back down, we've had a 40% increase in the price of crypto, and I'm like, oh my God, just go arrest more people. Like, not but
oh yeah.
If you find
absolutely
bankments and bust them, that seems to be I mean, do you see the same thing, or am I just like?
No, I agree with you. I think people and the industry is responding well to regulation. The only thing that makes me nervous is regulation that doesn't make sense, because it's knee jerk. But I think, in terms of when we're just talking about the price of Bitcoin and that market and how it's reacting to regulation, I think it's been positive. So unless there's something we're missing, but generally it's been positive. And the bad actors just need to be pulled out of this space completely. But I'd like to also highlight that bad actors exist in all industries, as we've seen with the banks being completely reckless. I mean, there's complete fraud in some of these Bitcoin companies, but some of the banks are pretty close to that as well, in traditional banks. So people will do what they're allowed to do to make the most money for themselves generally. And especially in a business where they know there's no oversight. So I think I think we needed that. I think we needed this big washout. I mean, I'm a victim of Celsius myself, so I'd like to see these guys arrested. I think it's pretty terrible what happened and what went down. and some people certainly to be made examples of. And then we need, like, adequate regulation for the sectors. But, at the same time, we could say, hey, there's not even adequate regulation in the banking sector, as we know now.
Yeah.
So let's not over-regulate, but let's get something practical in place that prevents bad actors from ripping off retail investors.
Yeah, no, I agree with you and all that. And I mean, the banking sector is really, I think all of us crypto guys are kind of a bit upset with the banking guys because, when we do goofy stuff and we lose all our money, the government sits there and goes, well, you deserve it, you rotten crypto.
Yeah, totally, because it was
the
crypto.
guys lose all their money. They're like, oh, here's some taxpayer money to help you.
Yeah,
wow.
totally agree with you.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. And, the way I look at it is, like, the analogy is sort of like crypto is the canary in the coal mine of a sort of broken financial system, where money is just being flung around to hot sectors with no real adequate, assessment of risk. And, the banks don't have the same regulation. And yes, you hit the nail on the head. When it's crypto, it's like, oh, well, it's crypto, so that makes sense that everybody got ripped off. Oh, wait, it's the banks? Better bail them out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, it really is a complete double standard. And, in 30 years, it won't be that way. But it's also a testament to why are we centralizing these asset classes that were made to be decentralized? When you mix in people into the mix, you're going to have bad actors every time. So what is fascinating is that, hey, we centralized something that was, the whole beauty of it was to be decentralized, and it didn't work. But what did work? Well, Bitcoin's still around, the price is coming back, and a number of other cryptocurrencies are doing just fine. So the companies got wiped out, and unfortunately, the retail investors got wiped out. But if you were just sitting on Bitcoin this whole time and you've been consistent in that model, you're fine.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Okay. Hey, let's talk about your company. You are hopefully going to be trading soon, correct? So
yeah,
I mean, how you got to that process, I guess.
Yeah, let's talk about 2022, because obviously it's been a nightmare for pretty much everybody. You've seen the values of some altcoins come down 99%. You've seen wipeouts of Celsius, Genesis, FTX, bad actors in the space. It's been a real disastrous 2022. So back to my point, surviving is winning right now. So I'd like to say we're winning. What we did encounter this year was difficulties with auditors having in-house technical expertise to deal with complex financial aspects of the blockchain, really. So for us, the big issue was, hey, well, there's a component of our business that is based on smart contracts, which uses, we did really well in DeFi up to about February 2022 until the market collapsed and a lot of these DeFi tokens crashed down 99%. But we did really well in the DeFi space. So that was a big part of our audit for the year ended August 31st, 2022. So by the time the auditors realized that they're going to have to bring in external technical expertise at Christmas time, and our filing deadline was the 31st, we knew that this was just going to end in disaster, which it did. So, a few days before our filing deadline, we're told that we need to basically have a ton of work to do still in terms of what they needed to do for their audit procedures. A bit disappointing to me, as I feel like there should have been more foresight there and said, hey, let's have a management CTO cease trade rather than a full cease trade, because if you apply for a management cease trade in advance, then you're not a victim of the cease trade order and your shareholders can still trade the stock. We didn't have that advance notice. I'm not going to get into all the aspects of that because that's unresolved at this point in time, but very disappointing to us, obviously, and to our shareholders, and very stressful time for everybody. I've never had a cease trade on any company I've worked with ever, so this is all new to me. But there's some other crypto companies that also had these trades in 2022, and they're fine and strong entities as well. So I wasn't entirely completely surprised, but disappointing nevertheless. We have got through that audit now. Those financials have been released. We just put out Q1 today. So Q1 was due at the end of January, but we couldn't put out Q1 obviously without getting our year-end financials out. So I had to do that. So it's sort of a domino effect when you get a CTO, because then you're missing your quarterlies as well. So the longer it goes, the longer you fall behind in terms of your filing requirements.
Right.
Happy to say everything's out now. So now we're just waiting for the exchange to say, okay, you're good to go. You'll be trading again on such and such a date. We heard it's a few days. So that's that. We put that behind us, and next year, we've learned a lot. I mean, we've learned a lot about the audit process, how the regulatory environment's changing. The scrutiny is crazy for these audit firms. I mean, CPAB is basically just coming down hard on all the auditing firms who are auditing crypto companies. From what I've heard, and I don't know if this is 100% accurate, but I heard 1 and 2 crypto companies the files are getting pulled from the auditing firms by CPAB, which is the oversight board of the auditing firms. So it's like the police of the police, right?
Yeah.
So CPAB is apparently pulling every second crypto file, from what I understand. So, there's a lot of pressure on the companies to get everything right, and there's no guidance. So, the financial reporting standards and the auditing standards are built for a different industry, a traditional finance industry. So how do you take these accounting guidelines and apply them to smart contracts? I mean, it's just like you're at this point in time, everybody's guessing, and every audit firm, is trying a new approach or a different approach. And so, you're sort of you have to create an opinion around it, and you have to look at the standards, but there's nothing in the handbook that says smart contracts should be audited as such and such, and this is the treatment of smart contracts. So that just hasn't been built yet, because the market has moved so fast in the crypto space. The standards just aren't there yet. So we're dealing with an old financial system standards. We're trying to apply it to this new cutting edge technology and blockchain, and it's very difficult to do. And I get it. The auditors have a lot of pressure because, if they get a file pulled and the oversight body says, hey, you didn't do this right, this is a fail. If that happens enough, they lose their license. It would be very destructive to the auditors.
Right.
So that pushes the auditing fees higher. It pushes the auditing standards higher. The time it takes to get the audit done, that sort of thing. And that's been a challenge for every crypto company out there that's publicly traded.
Yeah. I mean, what your company's going through, and really all the companies that are doing the DeFi asset going through, really reminds me of what the public Bitcoin mining companies had to go through 3 or 4 years ago. It was the same way. The auditors didn't know how to deal with Bitcoin mining.
Yeah.
DMG, which I was a shareholder, was shut down, I think, for about 8
years. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, as soon as they traded, everyone dumped their stock because they completely freaked out. And of course, that was a bad move because DMG now is doing quite well. And
they're a great company. That's a solid company.
It's a big company. Yeah. It's just really, and I missed the boat on that. So now I'm kind of like, I understand, Cale, you've been through a lot of pain and agony, but as a vulture investor, which is what I call myself in the pay group, it's kind of like, well, I see a regulatory moat here, and it's the same thing with Bitcoin mining stocks. They've had volatility, but the fact of the matter is, if you bought a whole bunch of these guys 5 years ago and just held, you're killing it.
Yeah. Totally. I mean, the values have been so beat up. Like, when I look at our, we sort of track in real time our AUM, and when I look at it and I compare it to our NAV, well, our last NAV, which was when we were CTO'd, we're like 6.6 NAV. So to put that in perspective, at the very height when we raised money, we were like 12 to 15x NAV.
Yeah.
So that's the sort of fluctuations you can get in the space, which is, as you say, a tremendous opportunity to make really, really significant gains, as long as you're patient. If you get impatient and you sell early, you're going to kick yourself, because we're always going to have that bull run, and that bull run translates into these stocks way exceeding what they're worth. And you know, it's the speculation business. So, you know, we'll see Bitcoin rally. I mean, we expect to see it far exceed its last high, but then our NAV is going to far exceed 1-to-1, right? And our revenues are also going to grow substantially. So it's kind of interesting, and you really get that exponential the curve. So it's nice to see. And on, you know, when we start trading, it's anybody's guess. I mean, is it going to be dumb money getting out that don't look, and then smart money getting in? Are we gonna go down or up? I have no idea, but you know, I'm definitely hungry to buy some more of my stock, and I'm the largest shareholder of the company at about 12%. So I continue to grow that, and I'm aiming for 20% at some point in time here.
Yeah, I mean, I literally don't know how your stock will trade when it's open.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally don't know. In the long run, obviously, you know, I'm have your stock, and I really hope to buy some more. But you know, that's just mostly based on my experience. You know, I went through the crash of 2018. A lot of the crypto companies, TSX Venture, trading for pennies, like absolute pennies, and I was like, oh wow, and I didn't accumulate, and then I'm
Yeah,
gonna make that mistake again.
totally.
So,
I mean, and let's put it in perspective here. Our last capital raise was at $1.35.
yeah.
So I mean, you know, and we have 35 million in assets. So, you know, we're not raising more capital anytime soon. So if anybody thinks they're going to get in a PP, that's never going to happen. Because we got
cash according to your last quarterly. So
yeah, we got plenty of cash. I mean, our burn rate's super low. We're even in this super depressed market at the bottom. We're still doing about 350 to 400,000 a month in earnings. So it's not bad. I mean, our burn rate is far less than that, probably 25% that. So, and when I say earnings, I mean, it's mostly crypto earnings. So we just keep it as on crypto on the books. So, I mean, that's all mostly Bitcoin and Atom. And we sit on that Bitcoin, you know, the whole angle to our business is growth of Bitcoin. If we don't believe in the growth of Bitcoin, there's no point in doing this. So, you know, we're here for the long run for Bitcoin, but you know, a discount to NAV is essentially you're buying Bitcoin at a discount to Bitcoin price. So, you know, indirectly, that's what it is.
Okay, before we get more into Bitcoin, tell me about, like, I think Atom is like the biggest non-Bitcoin asset on your balance. Tell me, you know, how you got it, and why you still hold it, and do you believe it, and all that sorts of good stuff.
Yeah, we got into Atom. Well, it came recommended to us by some individuals who were involved in the ecosystem, and they said, "Hey, there's this Atom, Cosmos putting together this token Atom, and you can build a validator and make money." And we said, "Okay, that's great, that's cool. It's kind of like Dash. Let's put a very small amount of money into it and build this validator and start earning some rewards, because we're all about diversification in the space and bringing in as much crypto we can, and eventually moving that to Bitcoin." So we built this validator, which is pretty neat, which is a physical server that we had to have at a server center. And it would validate transactions on the blockchain, just like anything, just like any validator or node. And then we would get paid a percentage. That was a bit of a headache, because if the validator goes down, you get hacked earnings, and you want to. It was just labor intensive, so we said, hey, this is like for 2 or 3%. Yeah. Let's just delegate and delegate our Atom, and just earn the rewards the other way, because the differential was so small, validating versus actually just delegating. You'd have to have so many people delegating to you. How do you compete with Binance and, you know, all nodes and the big guys? You just don't. So it didn't make sense to keep running the validator and keep paying hosting fees. So we said, okay, let's just delegate our Atom. Now keep in mind, we got into Atom, I think, at a couple bucks. So today, you know, at the market lows, it was $8-9 here on this. Yeah, it's 11 something. Yeah. I mean, it's 11:30 or something. I watch it every day because I have a personal Personally, I hold Atom as well, and I delegate it. And so Atom has become a real significant piece of our business because we just kept on restaking the rewards. So it became such a big piece. So, I mean, I don't know, what do we have right now? So we have 176,000 Atom-ish. So that's like almost $3 million Canadian. And right now, when I did the math, it's running about 20% payment. And it's stable. It's been around for a long time. And you cold storage your tokens. I don't have to send them anywhere. So I still control my tokens. They're staked, but I control them. So once you delegate them, we can cold storage it, we can delegate it, and then every month collect the rewards, and we can do something with the rewards, which is tens of thousands of dollars each month. So it's become a fairly big piece of our business. So we'll take some of that and we'll buy some Bitcoin with it. We're actually getting into some AI tokens that we see. There's potentially a good future for this AI tokens. So we're getting into some of that. So we use it as a diversification tool, also as a Bitcoin generating tool. And it's just been solid, consistent, seamless, no issues. And at the peak of the market, it was $45 a token. So US. So that's great. I mean, that we did really well on that. I mean, we're up. That $2 million was whatever, $7-8 million, and generating 10 to 20%. It depends on what's happening and the volume and stuff like that. However their rewards work, but anywhere from 10 to 20%, and it's been great.
So are you looking for, do you actively look for crypto assets outside of Bitcoin, or do you think going forward you're just gonna okay?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, for sure. We're always looking. So, but as a percentage of our whole portfolio, it's the speculative investments are smaller. So we might put $100,000 into something that we really like, that we think is going to be great on the next bull run, or we find something that we can generate revenue, and it looks like it'll fit into our staking program or our DeFi program, and then we'll build that up over time. But we're pretty cautious, given what we've seen over the last year, 2022. So we're pretty cautious now, and our mainstay is going to be Bitcoin, and we're sort of all in agreement there at a board level. But wherever we can find the big gains, because obviously you get into the right token early, and you can see multi-1,000% gains where Bitcoin moves doubles, right? So Bitcoin might double, but some great new blockchain that we get into, some altcoin, will go up 10x, 20x, 100x. And so if we can take those profits and dump them into Bitcoin, perfect, because that's like for us going back to cash.
Right. Yeah, no, I can see that. Now for Bitcoin, you guys were leasing machines for a while. Are you just buying Bitcoin, or are you buying?
No, we're actually mining. We're mining. So we have about 71 petahash right now, and we have 2 facilities in the US. So we have we don't have facilities. We have our rigs parked at a hosting facility. So we just park our rigs there, and we pay for power, and that's the sum of the agreement. And we have some in Colorado and some in Texas, some with Aspen and some with Frontier. It's been great, but Bitcoin mining is tricky, and there's lots of variables at play. So I would say, like most companies that are involved in Bitcoin mining, the break even is probably 14 to 17,000 BTC. So the margins are pretty skinny when you get down to 17, 18, 19 BTC. Nobody's really making money. And that creates problems because people have to sell the Bitcoin to pay for the power. And then you're completely out of the game of accumulating Bitcoin, because, I mean, who cares about a margin of between 17 break even and 19K Bitcoin that you're selling? Unless you're doing so much Bitcoin, but we know nobody is, because there's only 21 million of them. So everybody at the end of the day well, a lot of these companies were forced to sell Bitcoin because they didn't have cash to pay the power bill. So if you can't pay the power bill, then you're forced to sell the Bitcoin you're mining, which to me is sort of doesn't make any sense because it's labor and it's a lot of work to run these rigs. It's a lot of money. Things are breaking all the time. It's a high power cost, and things can overheat. You got to replace boards. Like there's just like it's a lot of work. It's a lot more difficult than people think. It's not just like plug in your rig and sit back for 4 years and everything's going to be great. And then take into account the halving. So if you have a halving event and now all of a sudden you're mining 10 Bitcoin before, now you're only mining 5. If the price of Bitcoin hasn't doubled, you're not making any money. You're losing money.
Right.
And you're spending your cash. If you're not holding your Bitcoin, you're spending your cash, and then you're out of cash and now you're selling all the Bitcoin that you've mined at a loss to pay for the power bill. And usually you're locked in for 2 or 3 years to these power contracts. So it is a very risky business. And I see, over time, what's probably going to happen is that Bitcoin mining is going to roll up to a few big international entities that will be doing it because, they've got the cheap power. They run the facilities themselves, so they can pay 4 cents versus like your average person pays, 6.5 to 7.5 cents per kilowatt hour for power. So it can be, it does feel at times like it's a race to the bottom. If you get my sense.
It feels that way, and then I
look
at my stock portfolio, and I always tell people, why are you in crypto? Because when I go in any other sector, I'm like a horrible investor. I'm always, everything else I touch outside of crypto usually turns to like ashes, and then I buy complete garbage in crypto, and 3 years later I've like quadrupled my money. So
the thing with the Bitcoin miners, that you want to look for. You want to look for A, that they have enough cash to pay the power bill.
Yeah.
And B, they're keeping the Bitcoin they mine. Because you're not in this to make a tiny little skinny margin or break even. You're in this to be investing in a company that has a massive growing pool of Bitcoin, and that Bitcoin is going to go higher, and that's the trajectory. So if Bitcoin doesn't go higher, that's not the trajectory that you believe in. You should never be buying this stuff anyway. It's not you, anybody. Nobody should be buying this stuff if they don't believe Bitcoin is going to go a lot higher for mining companies, because the economics just don't make a ton of sense. So for us, we mine the Bitcoin, we hold the Bitcoin, we have ample cash to pay the bill. We've done forward calculations on that for 10 years. So we're patient. I mean, we can keep paying our power bill. Even if Bitcoin dips down to, 10 grand or something, we'll buy more. Obviously, who wouldn't? But, we have time on our side. And so, the margins get really good, when Bitcoin's at 60,000, 100,000, 250,000, all of a sudden we're making, tens of millions a month in income. And at that point in time, if it's a high and it's a big green candle, you're probably going to want to take some profit and go back to cash, because we know what happens. There's always going to be that pullback after the heyday. But the heyday can last a year sometimes, so you never know. So that's the tricky balance that we play at this company. But again, at the end of the day, it's the growth of our cold storage Bitcoin pool, and how we manage that is sort of critical to the business.
Great. Well, we're getting near the end, but I always want to ask the last question. Is there anything that you want to talk about that I didn't ask you about? Like, is there anything I missed kind of in my questioning? So
not really. I think all the critical information is out there. We filed our Q1, so I can say, we're doing great now. We have 35 million in assets, no debt. We're a diversified company, so we're doing the staking, DeFi, we're actually Bitcoin mining. So we have a number of elements to our business. So I think we're one of the few companies out there where you can buy the stock and have exposure to all the facets of the blockchain space and revenue generating in the blockchain space. And on top of that, we got some SpaceX stock, which is pretty cool.
Oh yeah, about SpaceX. Well,
that's an important one, because you can't buy that. Yeah, you can't buy that on the public market.
Well, who knows? Maybe it might go up 100 times. I don't know, but never bet against Elon Musk.
No, I know that's a mistake. All right. Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks. Thanks for taking your time out.
Thank you.
And hopefully you trade soon.
Yep.
Hopefully it's imminent. and I'll continue to be a shareholder for the next little while, at least, and maybe even.
Yeah, we'll put out news as soon as we know the trading date. We'll let everybody know. Put out a news release.
And let me know
Yeah.
subs know too.
Yeah, for sure. All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Cheers.
Bye.